I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the City of Sebastian Natural Resource Board, Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. If we could, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could have roll call, please.
Yes, my microphone isn't but I'll speak up. Mr. Stadelman.
I'm here.
Ms. Ware.
Present.
Mr. Brudig.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Mr. Carano.
Here.
Ms. Thompson.
Here.
This is your alternate? I don't know him.
Yes, we have two new alternates, Mr. Frank Trinkle and Ms. Deborah Schellenberger.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, great. Thanks for everybody coming and participating, and we greatly appreciate your service to the City of Sebastian. If we could have a motion for approval of the May 6th minutes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from May 6, 2025.
Thank you, Tom. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Donna. With an aye for approval?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, the minutes are approved. We'll move on through to item number 5, announcements. Do you have any announcements today? Anybody down there? Okay, the only thing that I would announce is that it's the start of the no fertilizer spray for the yards here in Sebastian. And they do that here to try to keep it's the rainy season, and try to keep the pollutants out of the waterways by keeping them out of the ditches, keeping them out of canals. So if you guys are using a company or something, just ask them what their protocols are for spraying for this time of the year, no fertilizer. And it's actually a ban in this city, isn't it? Yep, that's what I thought.
There's an ordinance.
Or it's an ordinance, correct. And it is the start of hurricane season. So if you guys everybody can prepare for hurricane season. We had a little damage on our house from last year. A piece of our roof came off, one of the windows got blown out, water intrusion came in. But our neighbor lost their whole roof, so it could have been worse. So it's the start of hurricane season too. And that's all the great announcements that I have.
You do have one announcement on your announcement sheet.
What is that?
Your announcement sheet.
Thank you. I do have one on the sheet. Okay, I do have a chairman's notes here. It says, the city council has appointed 2 new alternates, all right, to the Natural Resource Board, effective May 28th. I hope I say your name right. Deborah Schellenberger
Yes, correct.
and Frank Trinkle. Is that right? All right. Thank you guys for joining our board here, and we look forward to putting you to work as soon as possible. And whatever your expertise is, would you like to share a little bit with us, Ms. Schellenberger? You don't have to.
My expertise is that I love Sebastian and I want to keep it the way that it is, and even better, hopefully, as far as natural resources go.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. We got a lot for you to do, and we appreciate you, whatever you bring to the table. Mr. Trinkle, do you want to introduce yourself?
Chairman and fellow members of the Natural Resource Board. My name is Frank Trinkle, and I want to begin by saying how honored I am to have been appointed to the board and given the opportunity to contribute to the future of our city and to the protection of our invaluable natural resources. I recognize the weight of this responsibility, and I step into this role not as a newcomer to environmental stewardship, but as someone who has spent a lifetime working closely with nature, advocating for conservation and putting sustainable principles into daily practice. I've been deeply involved in organic gardening and permaculture for many years, not just as a hobby, but as a way of life. I run a licensed organic nursery where we grow food-producing, pollinator-friendly medicinal plants, always using fully 100% organic practices and prioritizing biodiversity. My work centers around restoring the balance between people and ecosystems they depend on, whether it's replenishing soil health, cultivating native plants, or supporting insect and bird populations. My efforts have always been hands-on and results-oriented. My roots in nature-based work run deep. Long before it became fashionable, I worked tirelessly to protect endangered species, especially monarch butterflies, native bees, and key pollinators that are struggling against habitat loss and harmful chemical exposure. I've also championed efforts to restore and protect Florida's waterways, understanding that our canals, rivers, and lagoons are not just beautiful features of our landscape, but also essential arteries that support our fisheries, our manatees, our oysters, and our tourism economy. That passion is what led me to become actively engaged in solutions like biochar for water filtration and nutrient runoff mitigation, practical, evidence-based strategies with real-world impact. I believe that this board has a duty not only to act as stewards, but also as educators to help our residents understand that conservation isn't about politics. It's about responsibility, science, and legacy. I bring to the board a grounded, conservative approach to environmental stewardship, where the word conserve isn't just a political label, but a guiding principle. I believe in preserving the natural world through thoughtful action, community engagement, and policies rooted in sound, verifiable science. Not ideology, not fear-mongering, not feel-good rhetoric disconnected from reality. As we work together, I remain focused on realistic, science-backed, and community-driven solutions. I'm here to support the city's goals, mission of this board, and most importantly, the well-being of our local environment and the residents who call it home. Whether it's protecting the Indian River Lagoon, advocating for safe and sustainable gardening practices, or preserving native species and habitats, I'm committed to leaving things better than we found them, without noise, without ego, but with purpose. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve. I look forward to working with each of you and to being a voice for practical conservation that respects both people and the planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate having you here. And we look forward to putting you to work. And just to remind everybody, we serve the city of Sebastian for a balance between the environment and business. We serve the city of Sebastian at the leisure of the city council. And we can do pretty much a lot for the city of Sebastian in the environment and things like that, but we do it through the board. And we bring whatever we need to Felicia, and she'll try to pan it out as best as she can, and try to get your concerns on the agenda as soon as possible, because it takes a little time to get through everything. Okay, is there any other announcements? All right, not seeing any. We'll move on to item 6, agenda modifications. Are there any agenda modifications? Okay, not seeing any. Item 7, public input. Is there any public input today? Is there anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, and then we will move on to item 8, unfinished business. And item A in number 8 is the integrated pest management update. All right, presented by our illustrious Karen Miller, city engineer and special projects director. The floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm here just to give an overview of the Integrated Pest Management Plan, or IPM, and an update on what we've done over the last few years. So just as background, the goals of the program are to reduce the amount of pollutants entering surface and groundwater, minimizing effects on native plants, animals, and habitats, ensure effective economic pest management, minimizing health risks to the public, city staff, and the environment, promoting the transparency of the city's pest management activities, and increase public awareness of IPM methods and benefits. So how we got here is back in 2020, there was a moratorium period for no activity on treatments or herbicides or spraying in the canals because of some public outreach. We had 2 public workshops in January of 2020
to think about how we wanted to change our city's protocols. We created a IPM subcommittee. There was one for city parks and properties and one for the city's stormwater conveyance system. Through that, it then went through the Natural Resources Board meetings and city council meetings and ended in 2 different separate plans, one for city parks and properties and one for stormwater. Oops, what am I doing? So the way this cycle works, it's a cyclical iteration of inspection, monitoring, identification, planning, implementing strategies, record keeping, and evaluating. When we get into the implementing strategies, there's a few different methods we can use, either biological control, cultural, where you're changing the actual environment to mitigate what pests and plants will actually live in that area, mechanical or removal, and chemical control. So in the beginning with inspection and monitoring, staff goes out and monitors our different, both our park properties and our stormwater ponds, canals, retention areas. They note any issues that they're finding of invasive species or other pests. Sometimes it can be a native plant that can become a pest if it's in abundance. We can get into that later. So they are inspecting, noting what they're seeing, and when we're dealing with chemical spraying, we are actually having our city contractor go out and inspect as well. So we're having our own city staff and that other company inspecting at the same time and kind of comparing notes, because they are the experts in identification. And that's one big thing. It's really important to make sure we identify the invasive species that are coming in if someone's not aware of what the impacts of how much that could take over a stormwater system or a park area. So it starts with inspection, monitoring, and identifying what our issues are. And one of the reasons specifically, I'm going back and forth between the stormwater system and the park system, but they are quite interrelated. But for example, with aquatic plants, you want to, if there are too many growing in an area of a pond or a canal that's intended to store stormwater, it can reduce capacity, it can impede water flow, it damages infrastructure, or spillways, or gates. It could spread invasive species into other water bodies, both the river, the Sebastian River, or the lagoon, which could then spread even further. So the important thing is to keep, when you see an invasive species, and make sure it doesn't go further, both with boating, recreation. So this all leads to reduced storm protection, localized flooding, expensive repairs, and natural habitat damage if you're having invasives take over other areas. And like I said, we're still managing native plants as well, because if a lot of native plants are taking over in a canal or a pond, it still can reduce stormwater capacity. So it's important to look at both. Here's an example. We went out during an inspection after some citizen requests came in about an abundance of lily pads or spatterdock that was just growing excessively in certain areas of the canals. In some instances, this is a native plant that it's okay to be there, but it's all about making sure we don't have it take over other species and take over capacity. So after all the inspections are completed, it's all about implementing your strategies and figuring out which part of the toolkit you're going to use, because it's a combination of everything all used at once. Biological control, cultural control, mechanical, and chemical. In this plan, it was emphasized to start with item 1, and if that's not an option to change anything, move down to item 2, 3, and 4, and use them in tandem. So some examples of biological control are air potato beetles. They will eat at the air potato vine until a point that it cannot survive. So this is something that has been released by UF-IFAS and some other groups. And we can see in Sebastian evidence of some air potato beetles out there, but we know there's still a lot more air potato vines that we need mechanical removal as well. But biological control is just one example. Some examples of cultural control that the city has taken on are native plantings and shoreline buffers. That's something that you want to make sure the right plant is at the right place. For example, we've done this Riverview Park installation We are monitoring the impacts of how it's filtering nutrients before it gets into the lagoon. We've done some native plantings at Tulip Pond as well as Garden Club Park. Mechanical control is another option. Mechanical control is done by mowing or cutting of the material, but it's really important that we clean our equipment properly, because you do not want to spread invasives through the blade if you're cutting an area and then going to another site. So one thing our park staff has done is that the same crews are in charge of the same parks, and they work on them in like a regional map. So they're typically around the same area, and at the end of each day, they are supposed to put all their equipment back away, clean that up. But at the end of each week, they do a deeper clean with all of their equipment. And again, it's having the same crews out at the same parks. They're able to see and monitor and see what's happening on a day-to-day. They're seeing if something's changing, if something's popping up. Another mechanical control project that we worked on was at the Bark Park. We did an invasive species removal around the perimeter of the stormwater pond. We found that there were actually some plants at that park that were negative impacts on dogs. So it's one reason that we really wanted to mitigate that as quick as possible at a dog park. So that was a mechanical removal. There's just some images of some of the material that was cut and removed from the site. We also did the air potato roundup that was mentioned at your last meeting. That was the first time we've done such an event, but we're looking to do that in the future. But these are just some examples of mechanical control. We also have some upcoming mechanical control of pond dredging and canal dredging. We are still looking at our stormwater canals in relation to the seawalls. We want to make sure we assess all of that before dredging and removing material. But in that dredging, we'll mechanically remove plants. We are also looking to do a stone crop invasive grant. We did receive it from the urban forestry grant. And there's a picture up there of that region. The Highlands area, all of that stormwater flows to that retention pond, which then goes through a series of wetlands. From the aerial, it's hard to see, but we wanted to remove the invasives in that wetland area and surrounding the pond. A lot of pepper trees and a lot of other plants that are not helpful for reducing nutrient loads within a wetland itself. So as all of this is happening, the city is keeping all of their records of activities completed. In the management plans for the parks and stormwater, these were example monthly logs that were put out during the report. I will admit that each department has been doing their own reporting that's a little different, but these are just some examples of the staff, internal city staff activities that they're completing. So these are all of their activities, not contractors. On the left, you have stormwater, so some of it is clearing culvert pipes, vacuuming catch basins, vacuuming baffle boxes, pond mechanical removal, canal, and other manual removals. It's important to clear these culvert pipes and catch basins and baffle boxes to make sure that things are not spreading to other areas. And if invasives are in one section, we don't want it to connect to a nearby ditch or a nearby pond. So we make sure we're clearing those. It's also keeping stormwater capacity. As for the parks log, it talks about aeration, tracking their fertilization. They also talk about cleaning up at sites, cleaning their equipment, different things like that. And I was saying for the stormwater segment, we have been tracking slightly differently than that previous log that was shown. We've been using more GIS mapping, so we can go ahead on a work order, locate where we are, and we will click on, if we're talking about a catch basin or a baffle box, we will on the map locate where we are, what activity we completed, how long it took, what equipment we used, who we were working with, and as well as any debris that was removed as part of this work. You enter the amount of cubic yardage that was removed, and they estimate that according to the trucks that they're using, or both the bed of the truck, if you can see it, or in the vac truck, you can see in the tank how much material was put in that tank. And this is all just to see how much we're cleaning the system and clearing it of certain things like salvinia and some other invasive things on the surface of the water. But here's just an example of that stormwater field map. All of those blue squares are catch basins. We also have all of our ditches in blue and road crossing pipes. We are going through and annotating the material of the pipe, the condition of the pipe, what was found at that time, if we're seeing an issue of certain species in certain areas. So this is just our newer way of tracking everything in GIS mapping to kind of keep all of our stats in one place. And then as our last resort is really our chemical treatments. After we've gone through the biological, cultural, and mechanical removal. Here's a map with all of those purple dots, either signify a location of a pond or a major area of one of the ditches. We're considering those our application points for chemical control for herbicides. Again, this is a last measure. We have had this. Let me see. Here is our monthly log where we're actually tracking what species was specifically treated, where it was treated, and how much was used. On the left is anything from chemical that is used in the stormwater system. On the right is the chemical log for parks. Now, there's a very big difference between land-based herbicides and water-based herbicides. So I want to be very clear that in both of our plans, there is an approved list of what can and cannot be applied. And for all of these, it's important to follow the EPA guidelines as well as the brand specs for that chemical. So there are limits at each application. So we have some citizens' requests come in saying, we have an abundance of something growing in the canal, can you go out and treat it? We only treat it to the limit that is allowed per that herbicide. You cannot treat sometimes within a certain time frame. Many residents will say, I saw you went out there last month. Why are you not there the following week, the second week? And we say there are limits on that. And for the effectiveness, we want to give it time to work according to the type of material used. So it's really important that we're following the product directions. And that is one reason that for our stormwater system, we hire an outside contractor that is specialized in that. We are monitoring what they're doing and we're tracking monthly logs. And one other thing I wanted to say about this is that our plan was put in 2020, 2021. During that year, that first initial year, we did not use a lot of chemicals because it was the initial process. We wanted everyone to become familiar with it. We found in 21 to 22, 22 to 23, that since there was a moratorium that we could not use herbicides, we had to add more in those 2 years. We have found that this past 23 to 24 year, it has reduced significantly. So we are seeing that we've kind of leveled out and are reducing our chemical herbicides that are used in the canals and ponds. So we're hoping that trend continues, and that's one reason we're tabulating every monthly application. Does anyone have any questions? And I'm gonna leave copies of both plans over here if anyone wants to reference them or get their own copy in the future.
I have a question.
Oh, hold on 1 second. Oh, 1 second. I just got to follow this here. I had a staff presentation. Is there any public input on anything that was said? Is there anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. And what's your question, Ms. Ware?
I just wanted to, that last slide you had up there, so the contractors are filling that out? The contractors are?
So the contractors are filling out, on the left side is the one for the stormwater department. On the right side is for the parks department. We actually have someone within the parks department that is a licensed applicator for land, not water-based, for land-based.
And also, does anybody monitor the contractor when the contractor is out? Is there anybody from the city that's going along or checking up on this?
So it's on a case-by-case basis, and that's where the first year that this plan was implemented, it was very much, we were watching that contractor a lot. We had to make sure we felt comfortable with them. We have been using the same contractor since. They have a contract with South Florida Water Management District, so they do this in many different areas of the state. we have, as staff, have been out there. I've gone out when I first started at the city. I think it was maybe my second week. I went out and met with them, questioned them all about what they were doing, how they were doing it. They showed me the ins and outs. I've gone to some trainings with them and their staff as well. There are certain areas in the city that we have had multiple concerns from residents, and we actually videotape them while they are applying. Because there have been complaints saying, this is happening. So every single time they are in certain areas, they are videotaped.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Is there any way of notifying the public when they're spraying? Is there a general?
And that's one thing that's required in the plan, that we are supposed to notify the public. We do on our city website, on the Stormwater Department main page. You will see a map. It's updated. Their applications will vary, but I would say it's updated every 2 weeks. And it will just tell you a general zone of where they're working. Sometimes it will say they're working in zone, let me go back to this map. So those large numbers, 1 through 6, those are our stormwater zones. So we will, on the map, mark out which zones they're working in. And sometimes they'll go from one canal to a different pond, so they might be in zone 2 and zone 6. And where they are that time is dependent on where they previously treated, the recommended time to wait in between, after an inspection happens again to see how it's working out. And many times they go out and will inform us, I know you told me to go check on this, and this area, but I saw this excessive hydrilla in another area. I think next time we should go over there. The city will go out, take a look, and we say, absolutely, I agree with you. They're really good at telling us when there's some species that they just say, this has never been here, I don't know where this is popping up from. We've had that a few different times, and it seems like it might be some invasives from maybe some residents' plants that are spreading through the rear ditches. We also have had residents call and say, I've seen this odd flower I've never seen before. I've lived at this ditch for 25 years. First thing we do is we ask them to send a picture. I'll send that picture directly to the contractor. So many times they're like, I know exactly what that is. This is da-da-da-da. Or they'll go out there and take a look. Regardless, they're always going out and taking a look, but a lot of times they can ID plants really quickly, which much better than I can.
Ms. Bernard, do you got anything you wanted to add here? I greatly appreciate everything you've done. You've really got your division up and running, cooking with gas, and it's really impressive to see the work that was done and how it's being implemented.
Right, so this was a request from the board last time, is that we come back with an update to the plan. And so we as staff behind the scenes got together very quickly and said, okay, let's get something to the Natural Resources Board. So I'm happy that Karen was available to make this presentation tonight. She really knows the ins and outs, and we're very thankful that she's here.
Does the board have any additional questions?
I have a question. Are we using chemical control during the wet season? Does that occur?
So every time they're filling out their log, I think it's over here, we do use some in the wet season. But again, it is all weather dependent. And on that log, one thing that really will change what will happen is wind and rain. They are not supposed to go out if the wind is at a certain level. So many times we'll have conversations, I'm hoping to get out there this or this day, but because of the weather, it may get pushed. So many times when we're notifying on our city website, it's a very broad window because we don't know which day they may or may not make it, and they're constantly having to change their schedule because of the rain, because of the wind.
Mm-hmm. I think there's something to be said about if we're not using fertilizers during the wet season, we might want to think about the chemical application. So maybe implementing some best management practices or something along those lines, just to kind of keep the chemical contained rather than washing into the waterways, but two, actually working for the use that it's anticipated for. So
I agree with you on that. And in relation to tropical storms and hurricanes, once there's notification that that's coming, they are not coming, they are not commenting to us. They know when there's intense rainfall periods, it is not the time to do this because, again, it's all about getting to the right location at the right quantity at the right time and not letting it spread to the next adjacent area.
Right.
So I agree with you on that completely. And when we do take all of these monthly logs, we tabulate it in a spreadsheet of all the different treatments, all the different locations, the different species, so we can go back and see how many more applications are happening in May, June, July versus January, February. So I'll look back at that and see if there's a significant decrease in the rainy season or not.
Yeah.
Can't think of it offhand, but if not, we can talk to them more about that.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Great concern. Thank you for bringing it up. Is there any other concerns? Any questions?
I do, Charles.
Yes, Mr. Kraus?
First of all, I really appreciate the update. That was very informative, and I thank you for that. I have three quick questions, and I don't want to take a lot of time, so if you can answer them just really shortly. Charles was kind enough to mention the hurricane season is starting. So when hurricanes come through, do they impact, I understood what you said, that they don't go out and do certain things, but does it really adversely impact the spread of invasive species? Or, I mean, if it tears off a roof, it must be tearing off other vegetation and sending it all over the place. So does it really?
I can talk about the spreading. A lot of the surface algae will spread easily and will spread far because of the interconnectivity of the swales, the road crossings, to the ponds, to the canals. So that's a big concern. As for vegetation kind of ripping up under the waterway, I'm not sure I can answer about that. But I feel like some of these spatterdock and water lilies that we've seen are very resilient.
Okay.
And that's one reason that we are still thinking about going to some contractors for some mechanical removal of it, because we do not have the equipment for that.
Okay. All right. The second question was this. You said mechanical removal. Where does that material actually go? I mean, you take it out of the site, but where's it going?
So, for example, one thing I didn't touch too much about, for mechanical removal, we regrade our ditches. So our stormwater crew is going and doing that. They will take that material and have it sent to our public works compound and sit on site there, let it dry out. And a lot of times what we have done in the past is some of that dirt can actually be separated out from the algae and other materials. And once it's dried, it can be used for other purposes. We've had geotechnical tests to see its suitability for structural fill, but a lot of the surface vegetation kind of mulches up and decomposes and composts over at that site.
Okay. All right. And I have one last question.
Yes, sir.
Charles. So I participated in the air potato roundup, which I'd never, in my history, never came across such a thing as an air potato. But I don't remember any discussion about a beetle. So would it be advantageous to us the next time we have a air potato roundup to have the participants take a look at to see if there's any beetles? I mean, I didn't remember any discussion about that. And so would that be of an advantage to us to say, oh, we found some beetles, here they are, there's 5 of them? Or, I mean, from my perspective, that would be the highest and best use of, a manner to control them. And I guess you would want to look through and see.
So you can very clearly see when a beetle has been there, because and I think you had it in part of the presentation, there are tons of little holes in the actual leaf itself. So you can see when that beetle has been there and started to eat on the air potato. It's pretty evident with the naked eye. So that's definitely something that we could help identify and maybe make as part of a challenge for the youth when they come out to see who can find one that has been eaten. So,
Okay.
Okay.
No, yeah, I was just curious, so.
yeah.
It's also worth noting that we did look into the possibility of acquiring air potato beetle for that event. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that we weren't able to acquire any, but I believe it's through FDAX that you can acquire. And I know UF-IFAS did have control of the air potato beetles. I'm not sure if they're still giving them out per se, but that was something that was part of their research work.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's all I had, Charles.
Oh, thank you. Great questions. And
I have one more thing on this subject of air potatoes and beetles. Because we've done the potato roundups in recreational areas and public parks, it might be also beneficial to think about putting them in residential areas, because the amount of air potatoes that I see in uncleared residential lots is just insane. The Brazilian pepper and air potato. So that might be another thing to think about too.
great comments, great concerns. Is there any other questions? I can't hear you. Oh,
So I know what it's like, because that's my current job is working in the stormwater section and stuff like that for a different county. But I know your workers are working really hard, because it is with water lettuce and all that stuff is just keeps on coming, and like what she says, it's the right time for applications, or whether you're using chemicals or if you're using mechanical scrapers. So I know it's very hard, but very nice presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, I consider it a constant battle.
no, that was great. It's really great to see what's happening with the IPM. It's great to see that everything's being documented. I look forward to putting it all into the artificial intelligence model predictions, because that's what it all looks like to me, is training data. And if you want to know what it was, what we're doing, what we can expect it to be, it's perfect. So it's I'm really looking forward to that. Is there any additional questions for item A, integrated pest management update? And again, thank you, Karen. It was a great presentation, and I'm sure the public also enjoyed seeing that. All right, not seeing any more questions, we'll move on to item B, the Treasure Coast Waterway Cleanup, Saturday, July 26th. Is this the one with the Trashy Award? Is it that one?
The Trashy Award was from the International Coastal
Oh,
Cleanup
got you.
in September.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, do you have a presentation for this?
No presentation, I just have a couple of small updates. So in the agenda packet, you will find a copy of the sponsor flyer from the Marine Industries Association of the Treasure Coast. These are all the current sponsors and site leaders that are involved in the event as of right now, but there will likely be updates to this if there are additional sponsors that are added. I have also been in correspondence with the Marine Resources Council and the Sebastian River Area Chamber of Commerce, and they are assisting in soliciting for volunteers for the event. So we are really excited to have their partnership in this, and I hope to see some members of the MRC team at the event that day. That would be wonderful if they could join us. And something to touch on, I've also inquired with MRC about some outreach materials that they may think would be suitable for the cleanup event, and they've provided us with a couple of their recently developed low-impact living checklists that they're willing to let us use, as well as a flyer on harmful algal blooms to just create a little general awareness for the public.
And you still have me as point on that?
I do, and the next, there is a committee meeting coming up, I believe, next week, next Wednesday, if you are able to attend that meeting with me. And again, it is virtual, so you don't have to be anywhere in person. You can just listen in. And that way I have a second person keeping tabs on what's going on as far as planning progress goes, if there's anything that we need to
I'm
take
all
action on.
in. Whatever we got to do to get us another Trashy Award. If you guys haven't noticed, I'm a little competitive.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, you're right. Okay, again, that's the 18th Annual Treasure Coast Waterway Cleanup, and it's Saturday, July 26th, 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. The cleanup week is Saturday, July 19th to Sunday, July 27th. That's a self-reporting, so you don't actually have to come out that day to participate. Just find yourself a body of water, look out for the alligators, and go in and clean it up. But you can report everything to tcwaterwaycleanup.com. You can register online. And if you want to do your own thing for the cleanup week, that's great too. And if not, we'll see you out there Saturday, July 26th.
And that's at the Main Street dock, right? The Main
Yes,
Street
that's
boat
correct.
ramp.
Main Street Boat Ramp. Well, what is that? I'm sorry. They call that
It's the Captain Robert Hardy Main Street Boat Ramp. is the
Captain
full
Robert
title.
Hardy Main Street Boat Ramp. Trying to get that correct. Okay, and is there any other questions on that?
I do have an additional question for the board. If there is anybody who, at this point, knows that they absolutely will not be available to assist with the cleanup that day, but if anybody does know that they will be in attendance, I'd just like to take a quick tally of who has an idea.
I'll
as
be
of
there,
right now.
Felicia. It's on my calendar.
I'll be there.
On
too.
mine too.
I should be available as well.
And remember, board and everybody who's participating, it is volunteer. Remember, we do personal, family, then do your volunteer stuff. So whatever we got to do, don't feel like you absolutely have to be here if there's something that's holding up.
You can put me down as being there too.
Thank you.
And it looks like some of our sponsors range everything from the Environmental Learning Center to, of course, the City of Sebastian. Waste Management's going to be out there, the One Lagoon. And so there's just a lot of sponsors here. Harbor Branch is out there. It's always good to see them out there. And we would hope to see just everybody we can get out there and picking up garbage. Okay, go ahead. Any other questions or comments from anybody? Anybody online? Okay. All right. Not seeing any additional comments. We will move on to item C. And that's for Sustainable Sebastian. And I think we all have our personal Sustainable Sebastian update. I like that. Now we just got it right here. We are. So if everybody just wants to take a look at what you're doing, your expectations are to have them done by our due dates. And if anybody has something that they're working on that they may need some assistance, just reach out. We all have to go through Felicia and the front desk so that we don't break any rules. But if there's something that you're working on that you just have a question or somebody else may be able to help, just feel free to reach out because this board has always worked with each other and will continue to do that going forward. It looks like I'm not due for a couple of years. Teasing. Let me see.
And Charles, I do want to kick us off to go over Sustainable Sebastian with the returning of the annual poll. As we were discussing at the last board meeting, we do have a copy of the most recent draft in your agenda packet tonight. This was slightly modified from the last time based on your comments, so if we can just kind of go over that, if there's any concerns, any further updates, anything that we need to do before we start working on getting this turned into an actual usable, tangible survey.
And again, if we see something after we leave here, again, send Felicia an email and they'll send it to who needs to know.
So I just want to mention a couple things. We've, to the extent possible, we've incorporated your suggestions and your changes into the poll. We, at some point, want to say that that's enough, and now we need to go on, take that next step. And remember, the intention is that this would be an annual poll, so through iterations of the poll itself, the annual poll, we'll keep some questions and say that makes sense. We want to know what the changes will be over the long term. And if we don't get good answers or it doesn't work out, we'll dump that question and take some others into consideration. So I think the intention is to fairly quickly move this on to the next step here. So.
Well, it's a great intention. I mean, you always want to know what everybody who lives here is thinking. And so I think this is a great way of doing it. I think it's something that could possibly stay up on the website and just have people answer it all year round. And we can compile the answers whenever. It's just there for them to let their opinions be known. And does anybody have any questions about what we're looking at so far?
Number 4, you should read that again and maybe change the wording. Do you think the quality of the Sebastian it should be Sebastian's natural environment?
It could probably read like, right now, do you think the quality of Sebastian's environment as a whole is getting better or worse?
It's the word "the" in front of Sebastian. It's Sebastian's place and it's Sebastian's environmental and natural environment.
I think going forward, they'll catch the wordings and stuff. You're right. Any other questions? Good work. Thank you, Mr. Kraus. Greatly appreciate everything that you're doing there. Looks
Okay,
good.
Remember that our staff assists with this also, so I don't want to be and you folks do also, I mean, through your suggestions, et cetera. So I think we should acknowledge the assistance and help of the staff and you folks. Thank you.
I'll second that. Thank you very much, staff. Okay, any other questions on what we're looking at here for the survey or the Sustainable Sebastian? Anything there? All right, not seeing any. We're going to move on to number 9, new business. Is there any new business we need to discuss at this point? We're done with Earth Day for now. All right. Okay, excellent. We'll move on to number 10, items for next agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to put on the next agenda? Okay, my due date is coming up in June, and
Which goal was that that you're
right.
referring to?
I got the predictive analytic model is, that's June. Okay, I see that.
What year?
All right, yeah, okay. Yeah. See, I told you I wasn't joking.
Maybe we include a progress
Right.
update on the goals where the deadline has passed or is approaching.
And then I have the resolution for the commitment for the city of Sebastian for single-use plastics. I'll have to get with you on that because there's been some changes recently, and I just don't, if everybody doesn't know, I try to work within what we have, and if it doesn't work, we'll break it. And and that's coming up for me in July. So we'll have one more meeting, and then my report will be due. So I'll work with you then. The other thing, I didn't realize it was for 2028. I was just joking earlier. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for items for next agenda? We're going to talk about Sustainable Sebastian again and the Treasure Coast Waterway cleanup. Does anybody need to put anything on?
I don't have anything on the agenda, but I do have a question for the board based on Sustainable Sebastian. So Felicia and I had a discussion yesterday about one of the goals, and one of the goals for the sustainable landscaping practices was to revive the Champion Tree Program. And in the past, there's been all different kinds of trees, and we thought of a question that we wanted to bring up to everyone is, do we only want to include native trees, or all other types of trees, because there are types of palms, such as Bismarck palm, that's not native, but do we want to honor those in the tree program? And
Well,
that's
that
something we
almost
can,
sounds like something we need to vote on.
and that's something we can also think about too and bring up for the next meeting.
I think we should think about it and have some other questions about how we would do that, because I think that you're really expanding the scope to such a big degree, because there are so many unusual trees in this area that I'm sure if you're a homeowner, you probably wouldn't want, you know, I don't think that necessarily they're looking for some kind of commendation for having that tree. And if we're striving to deal with natives, I think that should take the precedence here. So, I mean,
Well, let's table it till next meeting. Because I think we got a little bit of time for that, and it gives us something to think about. I like what you're thinking, though, Ms. Ware. And believe it or
Excuse me,
not,
Charles, before can someone define to me what a champion tree is? Let's start there first.
All right. So, I don't recall the official definition that was used in the original Champion Tree program, and that's something that I have to comb through the original Champion Tree documents, because there was a resolution that went into place for that, and there were, it was a really fully fleshed out program that went defunct, I think even before Kim Hagler's reign. She may have dabbled in the program, but I don't remember her, she didn't go over it with me when, I had my time working with her. So that was something that was over long ago, and so I have to comb through that and make sure that I know exactly what the definition was. It is trees of large sizes, that's for certain. I think it's everything, I don't know if I can say everything, but in our code we have the specification that trees over 10 inches in diameter are considered specimen trees, and so there must have been a minimum diameter, let's say, for hardwood trees that would have qualified as champion trees, but that is something that we have to double check that resolution for.
We will look at the original resolution and analyze it and educate next meeting about what that original one looks like, and if you guys want to add or modify.
I'm just happy I wasn't the only one who didn't know.
And I think that's part of reviving the whole program too. And Felicia and I mentioned the Champion Tree program can kind of be used as a stepping stone for historical status of trees, so.
sure.
Yeah.
And it fits into what we do. A lot of people like to come see those specimen trees.
It's a point of attraction.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just another quiver, another arrow in that quiver. Any other questions on that? All right, not seeing any. If I can get a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you, Tom. Can I get a second? Thank you, Matthew. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.